Good afternoon, good evening over in Europe. Welcome to another edition of Let's Build Communication with our friend Klemen. How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. Nice evening. Uh, Not much to complain.
Yeah. Is April Fool's a thing over there?
Ish. When I came home from the office early in the morning, my youngest son, 3 years old, he said that they just bought a tractor, a huge John Deere one, and then he started laughing. No, 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 we didn't. And then I realized, okay, it's April's 1st. So yeah, it is a thing, but you know,
Okay. Did
I
he
didn't
get you
realize, and uh, I
a
mean,
little
he's
bit?
dreaming. He's dreaming about a big tractor, I know,
Okay.
for a while now. But I know we're not buying it because we don't really need it. But yeah,
You're not in the market. You're not in the market for tractors.
no, no. I mean, we have only a small, uh, you know, yard behind
Yeah.
our house to just grow some vegetables. But we don't really need a huge tractor.
Yeah. Uh, well, good job by the sun to
Yeah,
continue the subliminal messaging of what uh, this North Star is.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and speaking of consistent communication, one of the challenges that the HubSpot ecosystem has experienced is seemingly simple on the surface, but has a surprisingly big impact. And probably the best example that most people think of is Salesforce calls the sales management object opportunities, and HubSpot has always called them deals. Well, they just dropped an update that allows, it's in private beta, uh, that will allow people to change the names of
Mhm.
the objects, of the native HubSpot objects. I'm probably on the fence on this one until I see it in practice, but I would love maybe to hear your take as you come into as you've come into the ecosystem and kind of learned and like as an app, you know, creator provider, like I'm sure you're exposed to this like difference of language all the time. Give me your experience and maybe some stories about how this creates challenges for people.
I mean, the biggest challenge is probably when you have people using both systems in their previous life, and they're joining and then just using one of those two systems or any other CRM. Uh, it gets confusion if you want your teams to be aligned. One is talking about prospects, one is talking about leads, one is talking about deals and opportunities, and then there are probably other terms which are more or less naming when someone is in the customer journey. But yeah, if you're not aligned, then you might interpret differently. um, my experience when a year and a half ago, when I really started digging into the HubSpot ecosystem, was that I made a click in my mind rather quickly. But I see with my co-founders, I'm still kind of correcting them for the verbiage, because they're not day to day in HubSpot thinking about it. So even for them, when we're building the system for HubSpot, it's still tricky. Even properties, they call them fields. I mean, it's the same thing, but yeah, the exact same point. It's different terminology. Um, so I think that is useful. It can probably even be more useful when you have Salesforce and HubSpot working together, being connected. Syncing is much more natural. So you don't in your mind need to always calculate on the fly. So lead from HubSpot is going into the opportunity, but not into the deal, and so forth. So I kind of see why HubSpot is giving that option. I don't have a strong opinion if it hurts or helps on the get-go, but I see a reason why they're doing that. How do you see
Yeah.
that?
Well, similar to the introduction of lead, like Salesforce is always top of mind as the top competitor, that you want to win against. And when you're having to explain things like what a deal is, and everybody's used to opportunity, but also why the lead object in HubSpot isn't necessarily the same. I'm sure we just don't go into that during the sales process. Oh yeah, we've got leads, right? It's probably why um, they haven't really worried too much about the lead object being different, but just calling it leads because we just kind of it helped sales to be able to say uh, now we have parity basically with Salesforce. But I think from a like this customization perspective, right? And I guess in this case, it's probably better to refer to as configuration because it's built in. You don't have to develop stuff. But this ultra configuration mode of just doing whatever you want, however you want, is often the reason, in my opinion, that like platforms get not adopted. They're hard to support, right? Because people just start building, and it's similar to the difference between WordPress, like starting from scratch, and HubSpot CMS, which has lots of guardrails and themes and all this stuff, right? So I think that's where it's going to be interesting dynamic, which is always the case with HubSpot right now, as the customer base explodes and all these new users. Like for them, they're not going to know a HubSpot that where you couldn't do this. But it's going to be interesting to see, especially as a content creator, right? Like how we start talking about the deal object,
Deal
right?
/ opportunity drop.
I know, which is
Yeah.
probably what we already do anyways. Like deal, also known as opportunity. Um, but all that stuff like has these effects of just we think we're aligning to the market, we're maybe aligning to customer understanding, which ultimately is should be the priority, I think. But how much confusion is it going to create on the way there? Is it going to be even harder to find the help that you need? Especially when you name it whatever you want, right? Like if you don't call it an opportunity and you change deal to something else, that's when you could get yourself in trouble in terms of being able to get the support that you need because you've named it a certain way. Nobody's built for that. They don't know what you're talking about when you're talking about it that way. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting, man. But in the back of my mind, also, I'm like, AI is right around the corner. It's probably it's going to have no problem like understanding context and then not caring what the word is. And ultimately that will help everybody. But yeah, it's a big deal for sure.
Or big opportunity.
Oh, here we go. Yep. That's
Yeah.
well played, sir. But I wanted to like have that feed into the conversation. Like we're going to be talking about the prospecting agent, next week, and I think stuff like this, as hard as it is, let's say to sell something like HubSpot right now, like it gets even harder when you have ambiguous language around and it's harder. You can't create common language. So I want to ask you, as you're helping teams like prepare to do outreach or like communicate with the market, where are you helping them to kind of prioritize like, no, we need to get like we need to take however long it takes to get this part of the message right. And maybe these parts of the messages we can kind of figure out as we go. Do you differentiate there at all?
I mean, in a way, yes. Um, I mean, there's an interesting story I had last week, just around naming and what words to use. Um, Onboarding one of the users, in the system we describe AI words that the system should avoid using when writing the emails, and one of them is enhance. And then the generated emails or keep having that word all over the place in subject lines, in the body, multiple times. And then the user was complaining, hey, we included that word to not be used in the emails and it's still there. Why is it not working? And then I tried to figure out why that is the case. And the reason for that is in their marketing materials, in 3 pages of the document that I received about the value proposition and everything, they used word enhance 16 times. Yeah. I mean, even AI doesn't know what to do. How
Right.
come, so yeah, naming convention and confusion and all that. Yes, it's present. And I, with all the AI sounding text and messages, we kind of now look at some words that smell like AI generated texts, where in reality, those words have been used before, especially in for me as a non-native English speaker, whatever AI rewrites sounds better because it's the right grammar. I'm making mistakes. I'm using wrong words. So it is definitely better text from English perspective. Okay, maybe it uses some words that are not correct, but I don't feel that AI generated pain that you native English speakers do feel. So I'm less worried about those small changes, but more around the general tone, the general way of communication, being relevant in what you communicate, even if one word is wrong, or if you name it wrong, if the whole message stands, if it's to the point, if it addresses someone's concerns, needs, challenges, whatever. Again, the word is, if you understand it, if you get it, for me that's the the perfect message. No matter really those tiny words are. And on the other side, I always try to compare it to the alternative. If the alternative is have super polished templated message, generic one, sending to every person the exact same message. On the other side, we can have a super personalized, individualized messages for each and every recipient. I'm fine with having a few AI sounding words in those communication messages, because the overall value and the benefit of sending those personalized messages is just so much better to build the relationship compared to just sending each and everyone the exact same message.
Yeah. That's a good point. And like, I always like to highlight uh, most of the things that AI does that are very status quo like or whatever. It's because humans created the status quo. Like human marketers are the ones that can't stop using the word game changer. Like
Yeah.
that's why AI uses that,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, the same goes for I hope this email finds you well opening. You know, I was getting and I'm still getting those emails. And in certain parts of the world use those phrases more than others. But there is a reason why AI thinks this is the best opening line, because of the training data. So the data that was used to train the model on so many levels, that opening line was present because people are using that. And now this is the testament of AI generated email.
Yeah. So how is your so it sounds like if AI is trained on using the word enhance 16 times, it's not going to matter as much if you say, please don't use this word. How do you recommend people train versus instructions? Because I also try to do my best to try and not over instruct, especially the LLMs. Like if I'm creating a GPT or cloud project, I'm mindful of not trying to over instruct because at the end of the day, it knows more than me. And I don't want to put my biases necessarily into all of the content. How do you help people approach that?
One for that enhance concrete example, if if the user feels that word shouldn't be used, even if that is used in their marketing materials, we should find a way how to avoid that, because then they will be comfortable with the emails. I think with AI and every system that is writing text or helping you write whatever text messages for you, you should feel comfortable using the output. It should you should feel it's within your tone of voice, within your verbiage, within how you want to communicate whatever you want to communicate. And if you feel word enhance shouldn't be used, we need to figure out a way to do that. There are two ways. One was we provided additional instructions. If you have a conflict of the instruction not to use word enhance, and then in the materials I provide you enhance 15 times, obey the first instruction. So the general rules should override, use an alternative word, use an alternative phrase. That is one way. The other one is just go through your marketing materials and change the word enhance into something else. And then AI won't be using that, because there will be on one side the instruction don't use that word, and on the other side in your materials, your instructions basically in your prompt, that word won't be used, so the output won't have word enhance. So, from different angles you can approach, and we try to figure out a system that you're at the end of the day comfortable sending those emails. It's in a way 4.5 I think is here a really good example that can help AI generated text feel more humanized, and people are more willing to just send AI generated emails. So what we're now in a way playing around with is generate emails with other models, and as a last step rewrite it with 4.5 to sound more human, if you will. And kind of chaining different models for different purposes can help get to the point where the user is comfortable just sending it out right away. And it's the feeling, if I feel comfortable or not, it's not so much if it's super personalized, if it uses the right angle. You just need to feel comfortable at some deep level inside you, and it's hard to say what that is, but if you don't feel it, you will be hesitant to using that, and you will always doubt that AI generated emails can go out. So from what I'm seeing with people I talk to, this is kind of the way how to bring AI closer for that purpose.
Yeah. Um, just brought a couple of a little train of thought just came to mind. Because I think one way to help uh, kind of support and not get because if we get into this debate about quality of output versus quality of outcome, especially when sending communications across different channels, it's just not, there's so many variables in play outside of the words, in the email. or direct message or LinkedIn post or whatever. So where my mind went first is like getting super clear on the outcome that you want, like on the other side of that communication is like so important. And but that reminded me of um, a framework I was thinking about last year, like because one time I saw a post from Marcus Sheridan about how like less than 5% of companies like have like real communication training programs like for their internal teams. That reminded me of my time inside of companies where there was never an internal communication strategy or plan. Now I'm coming in with a new marketing team and I can't introduce myself to people, and people don't know what's going on. So naturally, that doesn't go well. Um, I started thinking about it in um, in 6 stages, uh, and I've never been like a student of communication, and like until recently when I'm trying to break down why this is so challenging for people. So let me know if these 6 stages resonate. We have the first one. I think that's kind of what we're talking about today, deciding what you want to say, right? Like
Mhm.
the ideation, the brainstorming, the like, what does the value prop look like? Just from like a thoughts and feeling perspective. That's stage one, right? The idea. Stage two is actually writing it down, like in a way that can get consumed. Right. Stage three is sending it via a specific channel. Stage four is it being received, like by the other person. Um, Step five is them being able to consume it, like after receipt, right? Like it's in a format that's not just a wall of text that I can
Mhm.
actually read. And then step six is their understanding of the message, like after they do read it. Um, what like is that a fair assessment of like basically 6 different variables like in play if you really break down like what it takes to get to be great at communication, I think.
Yeah, I would say yes. There are probably other, sub layers, all the psychology, how to write, how to, ask questions in the right way. Uh, but that all goes, in the second layer of how you write something. Um, and maybe, the last step is them bothering after digesting the message you send them, and making the next step in the communication. If that doesn't happen, or even if they read it and digest it and there's no reaction or action, then it's gone. You need to start from layer one again. So
Yeah.
if you want to have bi-directional communication, you need to have the reaction to your action that you made. um, and,
Yeah.
and probably, yeah, that's something I would add at the end.
Right. Well, I think that speaks to the outcome. Like if you're not crystal clear on the action that they need to take after understanding your email, it doesn't matter how well you write it or like how clear it is. They could just be like, oh, that's cool. Like on to the next thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I think what's harder and harder for most people that I see um, is stages 2 and 3, like really cannot be separated. Right. In this day where we have all these different channels that we could use, right? Some more conversational than others. Uh, so as much as it's like nice to be able to sit down and say like, okay, this is our email. Like, let's get serious about what our emails look like. Do you also help people like translate that to things like LinkedIn? Or is it more of like, let's just get consistent with the message going out and then start to massage it? How do you help people kind of diversify across channels?
For now, as an app, we are focusing on email as a channel. We've been using and playing around with LinkedIn connection requests and messages. But the challenge is on LinkedIn, the style of communication is completely different. It's really short messages. You know, if you just copy paste more or less the structure of an email that can be perfectly written into a LinkedIn DM, it will be a disaster. It will be just a prose no one will read. I know people do that because I'm getting DMs from people which are just I can scroll through that messages, and I never read those
Right.
messages. Where if the email at the beginning would pique my interest, I might read it the same length, because over the email we're used to a bit longer communication. Where on LinkedIn you need to prompt differently, if nothing else. So for that's why we are focusing for now on LinkedIn, on email as a primary channel to help with, because the style is just different, and instructions, what should be in the message should be completely different, and maybe there's just a long email, split it into 5 short messages that you can then use. But no, you need to provide that way what should go into which message, and how long it should be. Then you probably want to space them out and so forth. So the style of communication is definitely different. LinkedIn DMs are more of text messages, WhatsApp messages, where you just type a thought, more or less, pre-word and best regards and all that. So it's really different style, even though if you want to communicate the same message.
Right. So what would you say, like, for people wondering, like, the outcomes that you're hoping for, that, and so ultimately that's why the messages need to be different, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, from my perspective, I see LinkedIn and WhatsApp more of communication going platforms, but not serious communication. LinkedIn can be a good conversation opener. You can have a few back and forth questions and exchanges, but inevitably you will move either to a conference call, in-person meeting, or email for more thorough business communication. At least that's how I've been experiencing, and I see others how they use LinkedIn. And then when you follow up via email or after a meeting, you might send a reminder on LinkedIn, or you might follow up after a few emails without response on the email. You will go to LinkedIn to WhatsApp, but it will be, hey, did you get my email? Or somehow otherwise engage with that person to remind them that, hey, there's an email that is waiting for your response, or I send you a proposal that I need you to react on. So not even the style, but even the purpose of different platforms are somewhat different. That's why I for cold outreach, with all the multi-channel approach and everything, LinkedIn, as I see it, is more of warming up person to finally respond on the email. When you make a connection request, when you engage on their posts, comment, like, this is how you bring your name to their attention, and then they will see that same person sending them an email. If nothing else, they will read. So you are a one layer further from what you described for them to even read and bother. Otherwise they wouldn't. It would be just a random person sending them a message into the email. And as we discussed last week, emails are just cluttered with everything.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. So let's say we've decided on um, these channels, uh, and we've got a new product that we want to start talking to the market about. How, like, before we get to the fancy tools of prospecting agent next week, like, where do teams start to decide what should be in the email versus what shouldn't be in the email?
Good question, and probably the best answer is it depends. But
So let's
one thing which
okay.
is
So how about brand new product, right? What are give me two goals that we can differentiate for the reason that we're sending an outreach email.
there's always one reason with outreach email, and it's to get a response. You're not sending to close a deal. You might be sending out to book a meeting right away. So maybe it's either ask for some response or book a meeting. But no, this is the primary goal of every cold outreach, but even all the follow-ups is to get a response. So I try to follow the mantra of don't say too much, don't try to use and put all your marketing materials, how great your tool is, everything into one message. Make it simple to digest, simple to get it. I should understand why it's relevant for me as a recipient after the first sentence, more or less, or even after the subject line. And if I get it, I will read maybe one or two more paragraphs if I feel it's relevant. So at the beginning, use the strong point why someone should care reading it further, but only talk about one angle or one value proposition or one thing. Otherwise, don't make me think, but rather make it easier for me to understand and respond, because then we have a conversation, and then I can ask you more questions, and then I can get you to a call to ask you all the other questions I wanted to ask you in the first email. So don't try to complicate, and keep in mind that the primary goal is to get a response. And if you need a meeting as part of your sales process, to the meeting.
So is it always to get a response right now to this email, or a response at some point? Or am I now talking about the difference between sales and marketing emails?
That is probably one difference, and the other one is if you can understand where they are in their buying journey, how ready they are to purchase, you might want to have a different strong call to action. I just had internal discussion last week. What should be the ultimate goal for a system like ours or other automation systems for streamlining the communication? From within HubSpot, you have a lot of information: what website someone is using, what forms they are submitting, what documents they're viewing, and not every subpage, every document shows equal commitment or intent to purchase. If someone visited your website for the first time, or maybe 5 times in the past month, it's completely different if someone visited your privacy page. The level of commitment or interest is completely different. So with the one who just visited your website, you might just provide a link to a webinar, not even asking maybe for a feedback or a meeting, because they're far from being ready to talk to you. But they might just be exploring, and then one can go to your website for so many reasons. Where someone is visiting your pricing page, privacy page, they're obviously I'm not going to the privacy page if I'm not thinking of buying the service. So for those, yes, I mean, invite them to a call, invite them and ask them, hey, are you looking for something specific on our privacy section? Can I help you? Let's hop on a call. So in that case, it's a valid call to action. Let's hop on a call. But if you can understand it from the data you have, and HubSpot is a great place to use data that you are collecting there. But interpreting the data of someone's behavior is, I think, now the tricky part, because you need to provide instructions to every system that you want to use for that purpose. But based on where they are, you can adjust the tone of call to action, what you expect them to do. At the beginning of their, them being aware of your brand, it's hard to ask for a call. I mean, why they would agree on a call? I mean, I'm just looking around. I mean, imagine you go in a store, potentially buying a trousers. If in the first second, the lady comes to you and says, "Do you want to buy this or this?" I'm just looking around. I mean, I'm not buying.
Walk right back out the door.
Yeah. Or if their question, if she asks, "Can I help you?" or just leaves you there and waits for a few minutes, or if she comes to you and says, "You want to pay with cash or credit card?" which might be similar to, "Do you want to hop on a call?" You would definitely feel different based on the on your readiness to buy and where you are. But understanding that is a whole new discussion to have.
Yeah, and that's where it's going to be challenging when you can't get clear on, are we trying to convert right here, or are we trying to educate? Are we trying to add value, build trust? It sounds like you're getting at, like, this is where marketing and sales just need supreme alignment to be able to look at data like that and act, because this is the difference between a well-crafted experience on your website, so that for sure when they get to this specific page, this is how they got here, right? This was their behavior. You don't need to see 15 data points, right? You can understand intent. But when we don't have that alignment, like, we see the impact of that, where I might submit a form on the product page where I've seen all this stuff and I've given you information. Now I hear from the salesperson that it's like they somehow did not know that I've taken all these steps to go through the process. But I wanted to get to this last question before we kind of hand it off to ourselves next week. When I first read the prospecting agent update, at first they said it was great for admins and sales ops people to be able to set it up for other people. And my comment when I first saw that was, are these the people that should be setting up, the prospecting AI tools? And then about a week later, they added the salespeople. But ultimately, in your book, and maybe your book versus what you see in the market, who should be responsible for, like, prospecting?
I'm not sure I will give the right answer, or there is the right answer, because every company has a slightly different processes in place, different expertise. Where I see the opportunity, and I'm not sure that is present in many companies yet, it should be a combination of marketing and sales. So it shouldn't be marketing or sales, it should be marketing and sales. We're all in the same game. We all want more leads, better leads, more deals, more opportunities, whatever we call them. So it should be aligned in the direction. Lately, I've been thinking a lot in a way, how AI can help finally align sales and marketing. And the opportunity I see is, if marketing and sales work together, or if marketing makes the first step into prompts and setting up the system, bringing in the materials, the verbiage, positioning, and everything, work together with sales team, and then use the same AI system to write messages, then sales will be using always up-to-date verbiage, materials. Marketing, whenever they prepare new information, new materials, you just include them in that system used by salespeople. So by design, because of the system, teams will be aligned on the messaging, on how they communicate, what they communicate, what is the latest case study. Marketing might be preparing a super new, blog post, if you will, or PDF resource, or white paper, or great case study. But if that is not communicated and used by a sales team, it doesn't matter. The misalignment is even bigger. And then marketing is saying, hey, we're preparing those great resources, no one is using them. Sales is complaining, I don't have the right resources. All those typical kind of arguments. Where with AI, I see the opportunity how AI can really help align both teams. And then HubSpot admins and RevOps can also play a role in setting that up. But they are just the technical setup more than the communication experts. They should help within the infrastructure, streamlining everything. But marketing and sales should align on the communication. Then we also come to to the previous topic. What should be the call to action? That all can be incorporated in the system based on some properties, based on activities, based on some lead scoring, whatever the indicators are, life cycle stage, for example. All that can be used by AI to change maybe the call to action, or to change the tone of voice, change what blog post you propose in the email, in the follow-up email. Based on lifecycle stage, you might, if you want in the second email of your sequence, you want to promote a webinar recording. For someone who is MQL, you might want to share a different webinar compared to someone who is already in SQL, because they know they're further, and AI can just figure it out. You provide those instructions, and then marketing is changing which resource is more used for different personas or different life cycle stages. And sales is not thinking about that anymore. They can focus on better relationship, better communication, being more prepared for the meetings, close more deals, opportunities, and they will work together.
Yeah, that seems like a good. It's always been interesting why some salespeople aren't always okay with like just letting it come to them and just helping people buy at the end. And like, somebody's ready to buy, just help them close. We don't need to requalify. We don't need to do a discovery call, right? And that's where I think I would love for people to think about, and maybe we can pick this up next week. It's like, what is the purpose of this thing that we're doing again? And a lot of what I'm discovering, like with the value path and value first stuff that I'm doing, is that there's always, like, as soon as somebody raises their hand or gives you a great signal, how long does it take them to be able to talk to somebody that can actually help them? Right. And we're just treating prospecting agent and stuff as another like lead mechanism and another layer to be qualified. Like, we're not gonna, At this point, I'm not even sure AI is going to be able to like. It's going to do the same thing it was doing with the 16 enhances. Like, it's like no, the greater training data says like we should be like booking a sales call, like not whatever it is you're trying to give me right now.
Yeah.
But now that it's in public beta, we should be hearing a lot more, case studies of how people are using it. Definitely reach out if you're one of those putting it through its paces. If you do reach out, one of the first questions I'm going to ask is what your AI settings look like. To make sure there's tone and language and all the other stuff in HubSpot that you could be using to help your agent. But yeah, man, I'm excited for that conversation next week, and it's been a fun one today.
Yeah, thanks. Really great, as always, chatting with you, Chris. Looking forward to next week.
Yes, sir. So on the way to next week, think about your marketing and sales outreach processes. Find those opportunities and let's grow. Have a great week, everybody.
Take care.